Okay, so no one understands hashtag late stage capitalism, hashtag capitalism sucks, or whatever, as much as I do. I mean, I think I've been the rounds on TikTok and seen the arguments. No, I haven't seen the arguments. I am living the arguments. I know this new way of describing our lives as humans as cogs in a giant machine, as like we're little piglets, sucking on the teat of capitalism, that we're wage slaves, that just living paycheck to paycheck until they let us retire. And so I've processed all of that. I'm still processing all of that because I don't like it any more than anyone else who is having to feel these feelings and work their way through a new narrative, a new way of describing our existence, human existence for some of us who are not at the top of the capitalism food chain. So I could discuss it for a long time, but for those who are making content with hashtag capitalism sucks or late stage capitalism or whatever, when was the last time you shopped on Amazon? When was the last time we walked through the aisle of a grocery store with thousands and thousands of dollars of merchandise on the shelves on both sides, where we could just pick what we wanted and put it in our basket and go to the checkout line and walk home or drive home with pineapples and vacuum cleaners and magic glowy boxes that bring us endless entertainment. So everywhere I go, I see the fruits of capitalism. So we may not want to feel like cogs in a machine, or like we are under the thumb of the man who's somehow ideologically driving us, but unless we're willing to walk away from capitalism, maybe we just want capitalism to be smaller. Like, we don't want to have to go to the Walmart superstore, but maybe a corner market, with some seasonal produce and maybe just local, like we have a mercantile in our town, and it's not Home Depot. There's still thousands and thousands or tens of thousands of dollars of merchandise on both sides of the shelves. Yeah, I need a new laser level. Yeah, I need a new masonry bit. Even that is just capitalism on a slightly smaller scale than Walmart and Home Depot. So all I'm saying is okay, we don't like capitalism. We don't like feeling like cogs in a giant machine, and it's just our job to show up to work every day and get our paychecks and then go home so we can watch the game or Netflix or whatever. My mind makes a connection between those two things. So if we really don't like capitalism and we really want to go to a different stage, then are we willing to give up the addiction to capitalism that we have? That's like deeply ingrained in our culture. You know, you have, I don't know where you live, but you may live in a place where, yeah, where should we go to eat? You know, we've got a dozen awesome chain restaurants that we can go to within 5 miles of our house. You think you're going to have that without capitalism? Because the fuel for that, again, are those of us who are just bringing home the money, and we don't got time to raise our own food or to cook our own meals because we've been to work all day. So it's much more convenient if we let's just go out to eat rather than have to fix or do our own dishes or whatnot. Am I the only one seeing the linkage there? So I spend a lot of time in my head, a lot of time thinking, overthinking things. And it's great to spend time in our heads. But sooner or later, the thinking has to meet the reality. And behind every dream or behind every dissatisfaction, and before we start blaming the banks or the man or the billionaire or whatever, we need to take responsibility for our own roles in that. Like, we allowed that. I may not have signed up on a ballot and said, yes, I vote for capitalism. I vote to go to work every day until I'm 70 or until they let me retire or until I have X amount of dollars, and then I can somehow not have to go to work anymore. But it's what's been modeled up for us for generations now. How many generations? Going back to my grandparents' generation, going back to the 1920s, going back to the Great Exodus, because there was a lot of discussion about this, because in the early 1900s, people were just leaving their farms in droves to live in the cities, to be urban dwellers instead of rural dwellers. You know, yeah, let's get away from all this farming agriculture shit, and let's just get a job from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 or whatever it is. You know, we can punch our time cards and we can get our paychecks and then go home and never have to worry about who's going to feed the hogs or whether or not the grain's going to come up or whether or not we'll have enough money to buy X or Y. And now, generations later, that was my grandparents were born in the early 1900s, but it would be my great-grandparents who were alive at the time and making those choices to flee a rural and agriculture lifestyle. And it's much more complicated than that. I mean, there's market forces at play. There's world wars. There's all sorts of things. So, I mean, late stage capitalism is, if we take the cynicism out of it, it's not inaccurate. That we are now waking up to what we've created. And no, so I didn't personally choose this, but I am a child of a generation of a generation of a generation that chose this. And now I have a generation of children who are having the discussions about whether or not this is the life that we imagine for ourselves as humans. Like, this is the expectation. This is what we want out of life. This is what we can expect out of life. And yes, we can poke holes in the fabric of capitalism, or we can try to enter that other side of capitalism, which is we are all of a sudden, can funnel our traffic perfectly, that we're now rolling in 7 figures of income every year, and we can buy that beach house and kick up our heels and have, the FU money that the billionaires have. They don't have to live in relationship or in community. They can buy everything they need, and that also, I believe, is a myth. None of us live in isolation or in a vacuum. So yeah, I get it, and I have spent enough time creating content, poking holes and asking the questions. And I don't discourage asking the questions. Let's go ahead and ask the questions. But let's realize, and I hate this analogy, but when you pick up one end of the stick, you pick up the other end of the stick. The connections between what we're criticizing and the benefits, not just the benefits, but what we take for granted that's attached to the thing we don't like. And sometimes I think that's the only way humans learn, oh, I don't like this anymore, and we throw it away, and then we're like, it's the classic baby in the bathwater metaphor, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, obviously we're not going to throw the baby out, but with a lot of things, it's not as simple as just taking the baby out of the bathwater and then throwing the baby out. There's something that we value greatly, but it's stuck and connected and not easily separated like baby and bathwater. So, are we willing to go there? Are we really willing to dismantle capitalism? Or is it yet another iteration, and we're wanting to, okay, we've worked through capitalism and now we want to go next level and invent something that's better than capitalism, that's not capitalism, and we don't want to go back to socialism. Or maybe we want a new, like, hyper-funded socialism. So UBI, universal basic income, just take care of me, don't make me work, but let me play. And again, we're giving more and more away of our freedoms away, and more becoming, like the piglet on the pig. And yep, that's my discussion. I don't have anything brilliant other than, for some of us, capitalism is an answer that we never asked the question to. My great-grandparents asked, is it better to live with these wonderful grocery stores with aisles and aisles and thousands of dollars of products that I can just pick at my convenience and pay for and walk home, and let that invisible hand of the economy do the rest of the work? You're criticizing, when you criticize capitalism, you're criticizing that invisible hand. You're criticizing market forces. That's what we're doing. We don't like that anymore. So it's an answer that, yes, I didn't ask the question to, and now that I am beginning to understand what the question is, and how what it does to us as individual humans, then we can start to have a discussion about it.